Oh, how sweep it is. The Mets went to the Bronx and spanked the Yankees. Unbelievable. 4 games, 4 wins, a season sweep of the Subway Series as the New York Mets, the hottest team in baseball, continues to taking care of business. They are now 1.5 games back of the top wild card spot. And who is that? The Atlanta Braves. And who comes to Queens starting Thursday for 4? It's the Atlanta Braves. Oh boy, buckle up. It's a big one. Joining me on this episode of the podcast is my buddy Anthony Rivera from Subway to Shea. It's a little Mets crossover podcast. Lots to get into. Subway Series, trade deadline, Mets Braves. It's all coming up next on the Sick Podcast, Mets Magic.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Mets Magic with Jake Brown.
And it's in there, strike three called. The Mets win the pennant. The New York Mets have won the National League pennant. Put it in the books. The New York Mets, for the first time in 15 years, are champions of the National League.
The sickest New York Mets podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome back to the Sick Podcast, Mets Magic. I'm your host, Jake Brown. At Jake Brown Radio is where you can find me. Please subscribe to the Sick Podcast, Mets Magic on YouTube, youtube.com/at the Sick Podcast, Mets Magic. Smash that thumbs up button below. Comment below. What do you want the Mets to do before Tuesday's trade deadline? And how you feeling about the club right now? The hottest team in the league since June 7th. Spanking the Yankees' butts in the Bronx. Well, Tuesday was a sweaty one. I was there on Tuesday. Jake Diekman gets the save. We're shocked. They win 3-2. But then Wednesday, an absolute shellacking, 12-3. Francisco Lindor, 2 homers. Vientos homer. Alonso homer. Iglesias turning double plays. Unbelievable. Mid-interview. And, of course, if you're watching on YouTube, as Anthony Rivera of Subway Shea will join me in a few minutes, you will see my hoodie. And it is from Homage. Shout out to Homage. They have sent me this hoodie. As you see, if you're watching, ultra comfy, high quality look, sports, culture, legendary moments, a lot of it. You can learn more about Homage. Go to the link in the description below. I also tweeted it out. If you're watching on YouTube, you also see the picture of me in the shirt. I love this shirt. It's the Shea Stadium shirt. I wore it to the game Tuesday. There it is. It's an old school Mets Shea Stadium shirt. I know Anthony, our guest, loves it. I've got a lot of comments on it. It's an awesome shirt. So go to Homage, link in the description. It really is comfy. It's smooth. This is really soft too. And again, I can only wear it right now recording because I do have the AC on. I'd be sweating, but otherwise, look, I mean, this is comfortable. Think about October, Mets playoff baseball potentially wearing this comfortable, smooth hoodie. It's got a little pocket. I'm a big pocket guy. You always need pockets. I always got things in my pockets. So shout out to Homage for sponsoring the Sick Podcast, Mets Magic, and go to that link in the description to get your Homage gear, any team, pop culture, whatever you want. So shout out to them. Shout out to the Mets, man. They have raised our spirits. And you know, we love baseball. We love this game. We love the day-to-day grind because it gets us through life. It gets us through bills you got to pay. It gets through the exorbitant rent of New York City. It gets through the daily struggles of your job and uncertainty and frustrations with a girl, an ex-girl, a situationship, a relationship. Your dog's sick. Your pet's sick. Somebody died. Someone got cancer. The political things going on in this world. Everything that's happening. This sport and why it is so special, especially when they're winning, is it for a couple hours a day. And, you know, when you win, maybe it's the whole day. You feel better about yourself. You feel happier. Your spirits are rising up. And the Mets have done just that for me, and I think for a lot of people with everything going on in our world. They have completely turned this season upside down in a good way. Upside down, boy, you turn me inside out. round and round. Just call me Diana Ross and the Supremes. The Mets were once 11 games under. They were ready to rebuild. On this podcast, I had Wardy on, and we were talking about who are they trading and why will it be everyone? Well, with the trade deadline looming ahead on Tuesday, the Mets won't be trading major league pieces. Pete Alonso ain't getting traded. Starting pitchers with Christian Scott now hurt are not getting traded. The Mets are buyers. And will they go a heavy buy? Will they get a couple relievers and a bat? Do they get a reliever and a starter? Do they just get relievers on the scrap heap on the waiver wire? They will add pieces. I think they need to go in the trade deadline. I'm not saying trading your top prospects, but go out and get a really good reliever, whether it's Tanner Scott, and I'll talk about with Anthony, who they may go after. Go out and get a legit reliever. You are 1.5 back of the Braves with the Braves coming to town starting tonight for 4 games. You are right there. A chance to not only get in the playoffs, but have home field in the wild card. Be at Citi Field for the wild card, which didn't help them in the past against the Padres. The Mets are actually better this year on the road. But still, to get to that point where you are the top wild card team would be remarkable. Now, you just want to get in. I don't care how they get in. Just get in. But it's been an unbelievable turnaround for this team. They are must-see TV, and now this weekend needs to be rocking at Citi Field. Because the Mets, they're giving us a good product. Lindor, 20 stolen bases, 20 doubles, 20 homers last 2 years. Only player to do it in baseball. The starting pitching's been good. They're getting good relief. Jake Diekman got out of a jam. Adam Ottavino got out of a jam. It's like you might as well buy lottery tickets. What's happening? Daniel Nunez continues coming up big. They're finding ways to win games. And this next 5-6 days will be a big testament to who David Stearns is. What does he do? Does he go the small market route and just go status quo, get Sean Reed-Foley back, get Starling Marte back, maybe call up Fujinami and get guys on the scrap heap on the waiver wire in August for the teams that are out of it that don't want to pay these guys the last 6 weeks of the season, how they got Addison Reed back in 2015, or do they make moves? Buckle up. Big weekend ahead. Trade deadline will be 6 p.m. Tuesday, right before Mets Twins at Citi Field. And then the last game of the homestand is 1 p.m. Wednesday, Thursday off day. Then they hit the West Coast. And that West Coast trip will look like a different Mets team potentially. Can't wait to see what it looks like. So let's talk about what it might look like and what the Mets just did to the Yankees and what they might do to the Braves this weekend. Anthony Rivera at Ant Rivera 86 and at Subway to Shea. He is the host of the Subway to Shea Mets podcast. And welcome back to the program. Thanks for listening. I got a little emotional there talking about troubles. Clearly, I got my own issues going on, but how's your life going?
I mean, it's so good to be on here with you on a positive note. I mean, I know last time you mentioned the last time with Wardy. I think I was on the week before him, and it was we were in a dismal state, and now we're talking about being buyers in this market. It's great to see. The Mets really needed that turnaround. You could thank, a lot of this roster for stepping up to the plate. You got to, look at Carlos Mendoza and how he's held this team down. And like I said, it looks like we're going to be buyers in this market. I don't know how big of buyers we're going to be, but it's nice to know that this team is getting set and ready for a playoff push.
Yeah, both of you were on, and we were talking about Pete Alonso. I was saying, Pete Alonso, you have to trade him. And that talk is still out there, even with them winning. I just see no world where Pete Alonso now gets moved.
Yeah, no, they're gonna hold on to Pete at the very least and try to make this playoff run and hope that we get to see the polar bear. Hope that we get to see LFGM return, the humping polar bear that he does in the dugout, because that Pete Alonso has kind of been missing for most of this season. He's been kind of like tame, and I don't want that. I want the goofy, fun Pete Alonso back.
We need goofy Pete. Let's talk about what just happened in the Bronx. I was there Tuesday, did not go Wednesday. I wish I was. What a game it was. Let's start with Tuesday. Jeff McNeil, Lindor says we like happy Jeff, and you saw the difference. I was up close there. I see his face. He's hugging Pete like he was doing OMG. He's hyped up, and man, this was a lineup and that was finding ways to win when he was at his worst, when he was the polar opposite of the batting champ. And now when guys around him struggle, he has picked it up, as in Tuesday when the lineup was pretty quiet outside of his big home run, and he finds a way, and they're playing for each other. And I think that's the difference with this team. And since the team meeting and since Jorge Lopez threw the glove in the air, it's a team that's holding each other accountable and playing for each other. And Jeff McNeil was days, weeks away from, us saying, and we've said it all along, cut him, trade him, find a way to not play him anymore, play Iglesias over him. Now you're in a hard spot not having him in the lineup. His power since the All-Star break, the smile, he's played good defense. Jeff McNeil is, as of now, we hope, it's a short sample size, we hope he keeps it going, has been the player that we love again. And it's a huge asset to a lineup that's not getting it, from some guys. Like JD Martinez has not been that great. Mark Vientos was in a bit of a struggle, but he hit a big homer last night. They need this Jeff McNeil.
Yeah, when the Mets went on the run in June and got big games from JD Martinez, obviously Francisco Lindor and Brandon Nimmo at the top of the lineup were showing off. You had Jose Iglesias, Mark Vientos, and Francisco Alvarez. It was really Jeff McNeil and, to a certain extent, Pete Alonso, who were kind of in the back seat of all this stuff that was going on. And I was thinking to myself, at some point, when these guys go on a slump, we're seeing it with JD Martinez, we're definitely seeing it with Brandon Nimmo right now, that Pete Alonso will have to carry this team on his back. We haven't seen that yet, but Jeff McNeil coming out of the All-Star break with the power, I think he has like 4 or 5 home runs, right? Right out of the All-Star break. And he only had 3 in the first half? Like, what does he have? Like, let's see, he has right now. He's got 9. So he had 5 home runs all of the first half. He's got 4 in less than a week. And they could not have come at a more opportune time in those Marlins series, and then against the Yankees to kind of win that game on Tuesday of the utmost importance. So if we can get Jeff McNeil hitting on all cylinders and get Pete hitting on all cylinders, I think we have a legit lineup here where now the Mets may not even have to look for a bat. I think they're going to have to focus on, obviously, pitching, maybe even a starting pitcher with the injury to Christian Scott. So this whole thing with McNeil has been so huge for this team, and they need it going forward. Because I know you mentioned the possibility of having to release him because he wasn't playing well. But I mean, if DJ Stewart can stay in this lineup, I think Jeff McNeil provides a little bit more, definitely being that utility guy than a DJ Stewart would. So I'm happy to see Jeff turn it around.
Yeah, I mean, when the Mets hit the West Coast starting next Friday, DJ Stewart shouldn't be on the roster. There's been a lot of positivity, and I know the naysayers will say, but look, he walked twice the other day, and he got a single. Like, you got to put your best 26 guys out there, and I just don't think DJ Stewart and his walks out of the 5 or 6 hole are really helping an occasional single and the threat of power. I've heard about the threat of power. Where is it? Not like he's homering. So that's the one guy. Jeff McNeil, 4 homers, 8 RBIs since the All-Star break. Got to keep playing him. With Marte out, like you said, what do they do here? Marte, he's running the bases. The hope is early to mid-August he's back. But who knows with Starling Marte and Tyrone Taylor. It was Tyrone Taylor day on Wednesday. What a big game. A diving catch, 3 hits, a home run. A big day for tea time. And what a 4th outfielder he has been. He's not an everyday guy. He gets exposed playing every day. But now with Harrison Bader injured, now Harrison Bader left the stadium in a walking boot, but tests were negative. They say he's day-to-day. We've heard this story in song and dance before with the Mets when a guy is day-to-day and then they end up out for the season. They can't lose Harrison Bader here. You lose Bader, you get Marte back, but puts you in a tough spot here. So you're on the camp of don't go out and get an outfielder. I'm pretty much in the same boat. I think you can maybe get one of those guys on the scrap heap on the waiver wire, a team that's out of it, say the Blue Jays or the Tigers or, the White Sox. A Tommy Pham is available in mid-August. They could cut him and they could pick up Tommy Pham. And maybe they could get a guy, that might not be eligible for the playoffs, but that could get them through injuries. If Starling Marte is delayed, if Bader does miss more time, buys you time to get guys back. So they don't necessarily need a guy that's going to be a starter, in the wild card round. They need someone to kind of get them there. And maybe Tommy Pham coming back or one of these scrap heap guys do the job. I think David Stearns is going to be very active in August. You have the ownership, his wallet, and you have a chance here to pick up some high-priced guys on low-budget teams that they need to get rid of, and the Mets have the luxury of, hey, we'll pay them if they can help us get through these 6 weeks. I think it'll be unacceptable if the Mets do nothing at the trade deadline here. I think with what they've done this last week, what they just did against the Yankees, what they're showing us, and they have to make moves. I think a lot of people will be frustrated if David Stearns does absolutely nothing and just waits for Reed Foley, waits for Marte, and waits for these guys to come back.
Yeah, obviously you're getting some returns here, right? You're getting Reed Foley at some point. Reed Garrett has also been throwing, so he's an option. Fujinami has been pitching better down in the minors, so he's another guy that could come up. But that doesn't mean I want to see no change at all. Like I don't want to see Adam Ottavino come in to just get one out, and that's it. Like I don't want to see that no more. I don't want to see DJ Stewart come up to bat. And his bat has been masked a lot by the fact that we've had a power surge from Mark Vientos. I mean, if Mark Vientos is not hitting the way he's hitting, I think there's a lot more concern, especially with a guy like DJ Stewart, who we have on this roster for the fact that he had 2 great weeks where he was our best power hitter and leading the charge for the team. And that guy's kind of gone now. He's back to the player that he's been for his whole career. So if they can improve some way, like you said, whether it's a Tommy Pham, heck, I'd even call up Washington. I don't want to face Jesse Winker anymore. Get him on the team and try to pry away one of those relievers, a Finnegan, a Floro. Try to figure out a way to get one of those guys to come along with Jesse Winker and be that, 4th outfielder. I don't know how the severity of this Bader injury. Like you said, he could be fine. And then, the next time we might miss him for a couple of months. So I think actually what we'll see at the trade deadline, if they do or do not go for an outfielder, that it determines where we're at with Bader and to see if he's healthy or not. You got Tyrone Taylor, who played well, and that was the Tyrone Taylor game last night against the Yankees. Amazing. What was he, 3 for 5 or 3 for 4? And he had the big monster home run. He had that play in the outfield. So outside of the, backup type outfielder, definitely need relief. And I would consider a starting pitcher that can eat a little bit of innings here. I don't know who it is, whether it's Eric Fetty, Zach Eflin. I don't know who they got to talk to. I know that Senga's coming back. I just don't feel comfortable with a guy like Tyler McGill being the 6th man in the rotation. And I'm always getting on Tyler McGill, and it sucks because now I got to see him on Saturday pitch and start in this rotation. I'd rather see Jose Budo.
Jesse Winker, you mentioned, is intriguing because here's a guy that was giving the middle finger to Mets fans a couple of years ago at Citi Field. What was it? What was the exact motion he was doing? Was it the finger?
I don't know what he was, but then
he was doing the crybaby thing or something.
Yeah, but then he signed baseballs for the fans. Like he tries to be friendly with them. He just kills this. He kills us every time. He's like kryptonite.
He's intriguing because he's in the division. The Nationals aren't completely dead yet, so they might be a team that's like, let's not give up just yet. 11 homers, 44 RBIs. His OBP is 377. Want to talk about a guy? That's where you would like DJ Stewart if he was a everyday player to be at. He 259, 11 homers, 44 RBIs, 14 stolen bases. Guy that could steal, a lefty off the bench. You replace DJ Stewart with him, and now you're talking. JD Martinez too. Like, man, if he could just get it going again, this lineup is just so complete. Because what JD was hot at one point and was close to 300. He was at like 295. He was right in the cusp of 300. He was hitting with power. He was driving guys in. I don't know if his back has got him, the age, what's happening. I love the move. What is that?
It's the cleats. He doesn't have his proper cleats yet.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that has played a part. That is totally ridiculous. He's every series new cleats when he doesn't even play the field. Man, he is such a key piece to this team down the stretch because you want him to be the professional hitter that he was when he was hot. And if he is, this team is just so much more dangerous. But like we said, bullpen. And we talk about this series. What a job by the bullpen. Jake Diekman. What do you do here with this guy? Jake Diekman is intriguing because for most of this season, he has been dreadful and unwatchable. But I don't know if they're just going to say, oh, we're going to cut him. We're going to get rid of him. They bring Alex Young up here, did a nice job. Now, who knows what he'll be? He only had 2 innings prior in the big leagues this season and didn't give up a run. What do you do here with Jake Diekman and Adam Ottavino? My hope was August 1st, that off day, they are not on the team anymore. But if you're not adding anyone, you can't just cut guys and then, call up a Sprode or call up Gage maybe. Or like you said, Fujinami's given up a couple runs in AAA. He's done a pretty good job. I'm actually surprised we haven't seen him yet. Maybe they just want to see more of his sample size, make sure he doesn't have command issues. Because a guy like Sean Manaea, for example, couldn't get through 5 because of command issues. A lot of pitches last night. The Mets want to have relievers that won't have issues with walking guys and further damaging the bullpen. So we'll see there. But what do you do with those two? Those are the odd couple. It's your righty, it's your lefty who have given you headaches. This series, they got big outs. But in the overall grand scheme of things, I don't know if the Mets can trust in a playoff push Adam Ottavino and Jake Diekman.
Yeah, I said if there was anything that was going to be taken away from this trade deadline, it was the fact that DJ Stewart, Adam Ottavino, and Jake Diekman needed to be off the roster and replaced with, there has to be something better. I think Jake Diekman has bought himself another game, another survived day after that performance against the Yankees, striking out Aaron Judge and getting the save. Obviously, there's now 2 more relievers. You got the Young brothers. They're not really brothers, but Alex and Danny Young that have been pitching. Danny Young not so well, but Alex pitched a lot better. And look, I think Adam Ottavino is the one that's got to go. And I like Adam Ottavino. I liked him in 2022. Obviously, 2023, he had a tough time transitioning with the rules and having to be the closer for a certain extent of time and getting that more prominent role. But, I mean, the guy can only get 1 out a game. Like, we can't have that. We already have a tough time getting 5 to 6 innings from a rotation. And then you're being asked to get 9 outs, sometimes 12 from the bullpen. And when you come in with a huge lead and you can't get 1 or 2 outs, that's a problem. And it's consistent. It's consistent from Adam Ottavino. You can tell when Carlos Mendoza comes in to take him out after giving up 2 runs and only getting 1 out consistently, that you can tell the body language is off for Adam Ottavino. And I don't know what the problem is, but I think that his time here in New York, especially with the Mets, is done. Like I said, Diekman may have bought himself another day, but who knows who's going to be replaced once Reed Garrett comes back. Who are they going to get rid of once Sean Reed Foley comes back? It's not going to be Jose Budo. It's not going to be Daniel Nunez, right? I mean, you got to have a lefty in here. So whether it's Diekman or Young, those guys are going to stay. So it's going to have to be a guy like Adam Ottavino. He's got, he's got to be the one that bites the bullet here for this team.
There's not enough roster spots, and another guy who really doesn't have much of a purpose is Adrian Hauser. I know he's been better in relief, but he hasn't really. He was. David Stearns has mostly hit home runs in a lot of his moves. You go through the list of David Stearns, and most of them are home runs, including the scrap. Jose Iglesias has been a revelation, and the fact he wasn't on a major league roster last year is just astounding. Jose Iglesias. You talk about Luis Torrens, who they got in the scrap heap, has solidified the backup catcher role, which was something that was a concern with Omar Narvaez being an absolute waste. He was terrible. He got his backup catcher for $100,000 off the scrap heap. He got Luis Severino, who's been like an ace. He's got, Sean Manaea, who outside of some command problems will give you a good 5 innings in 1 run. He just won't get through a 6 a lot of the time. He's been great. Phil Maton, I thought, was a great trade to do midseason. Basically, you don't give up anything, you just eat the money. So that's the one reliever they got. He's hitting home runs. Bader's been great. Tyrone Taylor has been a solid 4th outfielder and a good get. Across the board, he has done a really good job.
And he's missed on a few, right?
Hauser, he's missed on.
Hauser, Zach Short, and Joey Wendell, right? And those two guys are gone. So he's not going to hesitate. Adam Ottavino's is his as well because he re-signed Adam Ottavino during the offseason. So, I have no doubt that he won't hesitate to get rid of these players. He needed them. We needed bodies in the bullpen. And no matter how well they did, they just needed bodies. And, now I think it's time as we get closer and closer to the trade deadline and to the playoffs that these guys need to be replaced.
Every game is too critical for the Mets to take chances here. They just cannot take chances with some of these guys. So here's what you do. Adam Ottavino, August 1st, gone. Jake Diekman, August 1st, gone. DJ Stewart, August 1st, gone. Adrian Hauser, August 1st, gone. How do you replace them? Sean Reed Foley is throwing a bullpen session at Citi Field today. He's within 2 weeks of being back. Reed Foley, he comes up. You go out and get a reliever, and we could get into this of who's out there. Tanner Scott, Carlos Estevez, whether it's the setup man in Oakland, I can't pronounce his Ekrod, not Mason Miller, the other guy in the Oakland bullpen. Whether it's Fairbanks from Tampa Bay, do you get another reliever from Tampa Bay who seems to have their own pitching lab and turn no names into great pitchers? The Jeremy Hefner school of Tampa Bay Rays up there that they got going on. That's three. You have options. Fujinami. You have, if Bryce Mendes-Doka could turn around, which I don't think they're going to trust him enough to give him a shot. You have Sproat on his way. If not, bullpen maybe becomes a starter. And that's the other thing you mentioned, Christian Scott. Do they get a starting pitcher? There are arms out there for the taking. You have to get rid of these dead-end pieces by that West Coast trip. I'm very curious on that off day, August 1st, the roster moves that are made. Obviously, they'll have the deadline, but what do they do with the guys? Because they can't fit all these guys in a roster. So that's what I do. And Ottavino, Diekman, DJ Stewart, Adrian Hauser, cut bait with those four pieces. What do you agree?
I agree. I'm not only bringing in a reliever to just replace Adam Ottavino, but we all know that Sean Reed Foley, he's injury prone, and I can't 100% give him a spot and know that he's going to stay healthy for the rest of this season. So that's why I'm definitely going to get someone out there. Some of the names I'm seeing, John Brebbia, you mentioned Tanner Scott. How about AJ Puck? He's a lefty from the Marlins. That's a guy to look into. There's obviously the guys you mentioned in Tampa, Fairbanks. So there's names to go out there and try to get. I don't know how much they have to give up. You mentioned, I think it was the guy from Oakland. Was it Urchedge or
Urchedge? Yes.
Yeah. So that's another guy that they should definitely go into. And don't forget, I don't know if you got to see this because you were at the game on Tuesday, but they were talking about the rotation, talking about Tyler McGill pitching. But Andy Martino also mentioned that they are going to transition him into a reliever at some point in time this summer. So that's another guy. Obviously, that probably means that, like you mentioned, Adrian Hauser's on the way out because you're not getting rid of Jose Butto, who's been lights out. That role that Adrian Hauser was supposed to be doing, that's what Jose Butto's doing right now. And the same thing with the Daniel Nunez. So, yeah, I think you're going to see that. Obviously, there's going to be a six-man rotation. I don't know why the Mets are so hesitant, and they've done this throughout their whole entire franchise, to take a starter in the minor leagues and put them in the bullpen. We've seen so much success from other teams with that. Why not give it a Brandon Sproat a try and see if he could be one of those relievers for now? And then you warm him back up during the spring and make him a starting pitcher. I would not hesitate to do a move like that.
Tyler McGill is going to be an intriguing piece. He's another guy. Yeah. Does he go in the bullpen with his 7-pitch repertoire? I'm wondering how his pitches work in terms of the machine. What's it called? The Raycom, XCOM.
Yeah.
Whatever the thing is, the catcher's up. I'm curious how that worked with all his pitches. Anyways, Tyler McGill is likely to rejoin the rotation, which you never know what you're going to get out of that guy. Like Tyler McGill might give you 5 innings and then go out for the 6th and implode, or give you 4 and go. It's usually give you 4 and then the 5th he implodes. It's a question mark. Tyler McGill putting out there. Now the Mets want to go 6-man rotation. Friday, finally, the return of Kodai Senga and this massive series. I really hope they pack the place this weekend. You're going tonight, Saturday. I'm going to go Friday, Saturday. I hope it's I don't think they're going to be sellouts, but I'd like 35,000 on Saturday. I'd like 35,000 on Friday. Thursday is the pickleball paddle giveaway. You want your pickleball paddles. Who knows? Maybe I'll change my mind and go tonight. Who knows? Friday is fireworks night and Kodai Senga. So we get Ghost and fireworks in the same night. It's a beautiful thing. I'll actually be first row behind the Mets dugout. So you will see me. I'll do my model wave. I might be in a lobster roll. And then Saturday, Mercury Mets jersey giveaway. Now, what's interesting about those, and if you don't know, you look up the picture online, 99 Mets wore them. They're essentially sleeveless. So, I get a little self-conscious with my arm hair on the top of my arm. I sometimes will shave the top of my arm hair here, like where the biceps are. I don't know if that's weird. It probably is a little weird, but I
got it there too. I got it there too.
But you don't shave it. You just keep it.
I don't, because I always have that fear. If I do shave it, it'll grow back even more.
It gets prickly, I'll say. That's the thing. It's a little prickly. But I don't like the hairy arm bicep. And those, if you don't have a shirt under, you're showing a lot of your muscles. So, make sure you hit the gym before you get that giveaway Saturday. You also got to go early. And then Sunday, I don't think there's a giveaway on Sunday. But this is just become a huge series, Ant.
The biggest series of the season.
Yeah,
by
and
far.
It's leading up to the deadline, too. Maybe there's a move. I was at the game where they traded David. It was a rain delay. They traded David Robertson during the rain delay. We're like, why is he not out there? Well, he got traded. Sundays, someone gets pulled from the game. There could be a move during this series. I think it adds some excitement to what's a huge series against a reeling Braves team. And why we're extra excited is because the Braves are dealing with an abundance of injuries right now. They have a lot of issues, a lot of injuries. Another team that is notorious for going out and being buyers. They will probably be buyers here because they're sweating. The Mets are 1.5 back by Sunday. By Saturday, the Mets could be the top. The Mets win these first 2 games. They take over the top wild card. But it shows you why we're talking about these little roster moves. Every game is important. Let's flash the standings here on the screen, because if you look at how tight this is right now, I mean, there are teams right on their neck in the MLB wild card, and it could change any day now. Any day, this thing could go from the Mets being the top wild card to not. And you got the Braves, you got the Mets, then you got the Cardinals. The Cardinals are just a half game behind the Mets. After that, Padres, Diamondbacks, Pirates. Pirates just 1 out. Reds, Giants, Cubs, Nats have all kind of got out of that picture where they might become sellers here. But you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams going for 3 spots. It's going to be a fun ride.
I'm very excited for it. Finally, some games with meaning for the first time since 2022, right? Since the playoffs, because 2023 was just an absolute, disaster. But we finally have a huge series here. And my plea to all Met fans, get out for this series. Please get out for this series. Sell. It's the Braves. We're a 1.5 games back. The Mets are 26-26 at home this season. So they finally got up to 500. They're 27-22 on the road. We got to get that home record back up. We got to make it feel like home again at Citi Field. And it starts tonight. And tonight, to me, is the must-win game. You don't know what you're getting from Kodai Senga on Friday. Tyler McGill on Saturday. It could be anything, right? He is the righty Steven Matz. Is that fair?
That's fair.
I think he's the righty Steven Matz. So, we don't know what we're going to get from him. I don't know who's pitching Sunday. Is that Quintana, I would assume, is pitching on Sunday for the Mets. So the Mets really
David Peterson. It'll be Ronaldo.
Yes,
Lopez versus Peterson Sunday, Schwellenbach versus potentially McGill Saturday, Sangamorton tomorrow, Sale Severino tonight.
And David Peterson's a totally different person right now. I mean, look at him. What is he, 5-0?
He's an underappreciated part of this turnaround. We talk about Candelita, OMG, the lineup, McNeil, the bullpen, whatever. We don't talk enough about David Peterson coming off a hip surgery.
Yeah.
The guy doesn't look, win-loss is meaningless for a pitcher now in baseball, but the guy doesn't really lose games. He goes out there and gives you if not a quality start, 5 strong innings every time. And I think he's been an underappreciated piece of this team.
He has, and I have up Baseball Reference here of the top 12 players in WAR. He's 11th. He is right ahead of JD Martinez. He's got 1.2 WAR. JD Martinez got 1.1. He's right behind Bader, who's in the top 10 of WAR on this team. Peterson has been great, and if it's not broke, you don't have to fix it. Leave him in the rotation for as long as possible. I know there was talk about, should he go to the bullpen and be the lefty out of the bullpen? Nope. Let this guy keep dealing, keep winning games for this team. And, it's so great to, have a guy like him. I know he can only go 5 innings. Maybe he went 6 once this season. But if this guy keeps, keeping this team in the games, that's been the most important thing, is keeping this team in the games so that they can win. 5-0, 3.14 ERA. I'll take that any day of the week.
And here's a declaration here. 4 games. Citi Field this weekend. Be there or be square. The Braves come to town. The freaking stupid mother effing Atlanta Braves. Our most hated rival in my 33 years on planet Earth. Forget the Phillies. Forget the Marlins. Forget the Nationals. Forget the Yankees. This is enemy number 1. The weather will be glorious. The seats might be a little pricey, so just make sure you eat before you get to the game if you don't want to spend a lot of money. Get yourself in the building. Forget the pickleball paddle. Forget the fireworks. Forget the Mercury Mets giveaway. You want those? Sure, they're great. This weekend's about winning baseball games. This weekend is about being atop the NL wild card, about showing the Braves who their daddy is. And it's time. This is no fluke. This is the New York Mets 2024 vibes. Winning baseball, having fun, and packing the ballpark. So I want to see 40,000 fans at Citi Field every night, every afternoon, all weekend long. This is the most critical series of the season. And we will find out what this team is made of by Sunday at 4:30 p.m. We will know who the Mets are. Did they fool us? Or did they show us they mean business? Back in the New York groove. Back after this. Sorry. I usually do one of those here. I did that clamoring Starling Marte to come back. He saw my Instagram story. He came back. So it did have an impact.
Look, I have not been to Citi Field for a baseball game that has been completely sold out. Now, I didn't get to go to the playoffs in 2015. I don't know how that went. I went to the 2022 DeGrom game, and that wasn't sold out. The most sold out I've seen Citi Field was this past weekend when I went to go see Foo Fighters and then Blink-182. That's the most sold out I've ever seen.
Well, you've never been to a home opener?
Yes, but I don't know if that was
sell out.
I don't know. Yes and no. I guess this home opener wasn't.
There's always scattered empty seats, but they'll announce 42,000. But yeah, you're right. No, the wild card, seats were going for cheap last minute for the wild card. That was a different time. I think that was like right after COVID / towards the end of it. So yeah, it's time. Like, this is massive. We're fired up. I'm fired up about this weekend, and take care of business. Like, you lose 3 out of 4 or split. I think it's like, oh, here we go again. Make a statement. 4-game sweeps aren't possible. Look, they couldn't sweep. They couldn't even win the series against the Marlins. 4-game sweeps are tough. Take 3 out of 4 here. Send a message. You take 3 out of 4, you are the top wild card. You have taken over the lead. So all we're asking here is take 3 out of 4. And I think with the way the Braves are playing and with the way the Mets are playing, that's not a ridiculous ask.
No, it's not whatsoever. I think 3 or 4, considering where both teams are at right now, considering the injuries, right? Strider out, Acuna out, Albies out. I mean, they're Max Fried, he's out. I mean, they have so many injuries to their top players, and they have really struggled down the stretch here. So taking 3 or 4 is not, a hard ask, but I am preparing myself for a 2-2 split.
Yeah, that's usually what happens, but we just want you there and supporting. They deserve the support now. I think this has been a good product out there and a product to root for. Thank you, Candelita. All right, Tuesday deadline. Gun to your head. What do you see happening? Who is there a specific player? What do you see them getting?
I see a reliever for sure. I want to say a starter because we definitely need a starter. And maybe a backup outfielder, maybe, depending on how serious this injury is now to Harrison Bader. So if they could bring in a Jesse Winker, or even like you said, a Tommy Pham at some point, got to get something in there off the bench to replace DJ Stewart.
Yeah, I see them getting a reliever. My number one hope is Tanner Scott. I really want Tanner Scott. And you got to remember with some of these relievers, a lot of them, a couple months, they're bad. Phil Maton was bad for a couple months. The last month, he's been fantastic. A lot of these guys who were terrible for a while come down to earth. A lot of guys who were unbelievable, they come down to earth. I think Tanner Scott's a little different because if you watch him pitch, his stuff is just filthy. It's not one of those guys, this is a fluke. He can reach 100, then throw you some off-speed stuff, and he's a lefty, something the Mets desperately need. I mean, you have Tanner Scott lefty, Edwin Diaz back end. With the job Nunez, Budo are doing, this bullpen could become what plagued the team to what carries the team to the promised land with just a couple of right moves. So I'm in the business of, hey, Brett Beatty for Tanner Scott.
Brett Beatty's hot right now.
Is that giving too much? Am I crazy for 2 months of a rental for Brett Beatty?
If the Mets are making some type of big deal, you have to think that Brett Beatty's a part of it. I mean, look at what he's doing in AAA right now. He's probably at his highest to sell on at this moment in time compared to when he was on the roster. I don't know if I would hesitate. And Tanner Scott's, I think, a free agent at the end of the year. I don't even know if you would have to give up a Brett Beatty for a Tanner Scott because
Alex Ramirez,
I think I would do that. I'm not a prospect hugger, so I probably would do a deal like that for Tanner Scott. And the fact that you mentioned earlier on, Steve Cohen's money comes into play here. It came into play last year when they were getting rid of some of their players and bringing on some players. If you give them more money for less prospects to give up, I think that's something that could work, especially for the Miami Marlins, who, they don't really buy much. So I think they would take some of that money and a lesser prospect for Tanner Scott, who's going to be a free agent. That's something I would do. I would definitely consider it.
It's going to be very intriguing. Another piece who's interesting, if Oakland's in the business of selling and the Mets are thinking about their future, not just this year, a guy who's under team control, if they could maybe get a package, if it's Brett Beatty, Alex Ramirez, maybe another piece for Urched. Did I say it right?
I think so.
Urched. Brent Rooker. This kid is legit. Hits for power. He's arbitration eligible here for a while. He's only costing them $750. I mean, the money is not a big deal. The question is, will they move him? If you can get a Rooker and their setup guy, that is a massive move at the deadline if the Mets can pull it off. We don't think they need bats, but it never hurts to have an extra bat because there will be more injuries at some point.
Yeah.
And you want to be equipped for that. And you want to be able to mix and match guys. And, if JD struggles, you want to be able to put someone else at DH time, once or twice a week if he's not going to contribute enough. Brent Rooker is another interesting piece. Cody Bellinger is a name that's floated around there a lot. If he comes back in the next week or two, healthy Bellinger, first base, outfield, DH. There are names out there, but go get a reliever, get Reed Foley back from injury, maybe give Fujinami a shot, and then you're cooking. But you would love some kind of package if you could pull it off from one of these bum teams. If you could get a reliever and an outfielder, a reliever and a starter, Mets got to, be able to sell prospects here. I agree. I'm not a prospect hugger either. I probably would not move Acuna just because I think I'd like to see Acuna. I think he's one of those spark plug pieces. I'm not ready to get rid of him. I probably wouldn't move Clifford. I probably wouldn't move the other outfielder. I have brain fart.
Drew Gilbert.
Drew Gilbert. Those three and Sproat. Those four in my mind are untouchable. Outside of that, I would be listening.
I think to me, Sproat is the untouchable one of all these players. Go back in Mets history and look at all the prospects that they have given up. How many times have those guys become legitimate stars of the team? Maybe it hasn't worked out on the Mets end, like the trades haven't, but how many times has it worked out on the other team's end? There's not too many. There's definitely not too many. So I don't hold on to these prospects like a lot of other people do. If you can give me a legitimate baseball player that's in the major leagues, that's what I care about, because I want to see this team win a World Series. And if we have to facilitate the roster and the minors to do that, I would do that.
Go get it. David Stearns, baby. Let's go. This is your time. 3 out of 4 against the Braves. Twins come to town, make moves, get a reliever, and we're cooking. Anthony Rivera, he hosts the Subway to Shea podcast at Subway to Shea at Ant Rivera 86. Looking forward to being at the ballpark. I'll see you there. Good show. Thanks for coming on. And let's see what this team's made of. I think we'll find out a lot in this series and against the Twins before, the schedule after that does get easier. But listen, you look at the month of September, and there's not an easy game in September. I know they play the Nationals and Jays, but those aren't that easy. Everyone else is in the playoffs or in a playoff push. Their schedule late August, September is very difficult. They have to put themselves in a good position these next couple of weeks, because we've seen September's gone wrong. They've given us nightmares as Mets fans. My old co-host was a part of one of those collapses in 07, 08. We know this team has failed in time in September, so they got to set themselves up here so they don't.
And they have two, right? They have 2 West Coast trips out of here.
Yep.
They got the Angels, the Rockies, and the Mariners. Come home, they play the Athletics. Then they got to go back out for Padres and Diamondbacks. That can take a toll. So we have to be prepared for this August to be a little bit rocky. If they
both
can come
teams
out
right next to them in the wild card too. Those are massive games.
Yeah. So, those West Coast trips usually used to be 1 or 2 times they would go out on the West Coast. There's 3 times this year that they had to go out on the West Coast. So hopefully they can come out this time on the winning end. And I trust Carlos Mendoza outside of any big significant injury. I trust Carlos Mendoza to keep these guys fresh and feeling good going into every series. I mean, coming back from an 0-5 start, coming back from that awful May, and this team now is 5 games over 500. I think I said it on my podcast. Yeah, I said it on my podcast thousands of times that I need to see for this team to be legitimate buyers. I needed them to be 5 games over 500 and within 1 or 2 games of the final wild card spot. They're better than that now, right? They're vying for the top wild card spot. They're already at the 5 games over. Let's continue to improve. What was it? Nimmo, who said to talk to Stearns, saying we got to be buyers this year, and they're proving it. Continue to prove that you're buyers in this series against the Braves. They need to come back after that 2022 collapse against Atlanta. That's where it all started. So come back and beat these Braves, even if they're hurt. Who cares, right? I mean, we've dealt with injuries our whole entire lifetime with this team.
And we get Kodai Senga. It was Senga Day. It was special last year. He's back, and it's time. You get Senga, you get reinforcements, and like you said, Angels. Then they have that 1-game makeup in St. Louis, which is now a massive game in the wild card race. St. Louis on their neck, so that's almost like a mini playoff game on August 5th. Then you go to Colorado, then you go to Seattle, you come back to New York, then you go to San Diego, then you go to Arizona, then you go to Chicago. I mean, they're in about 10 different time zones in the month of August. And then the Red Sox, Cincy, Toronto, Philly, Nationals, Philly, Atlanta, and you finish the season against the Brewers. So it's going to be a difficult ride, and it begins this weekend. And it started with a nice spanking of the Yankees. A lot of Met fans, good crowds in the Bronx. Mets fans were loud. Good support there, and good support here. And thanks for coming on.
Yeah, look, how fitting to end the season against the Brewers after how it started with the Brewers. In Milwaukee, David Stearns going back to Milwaukee would be a nice fit. Jake, always fun coming on here with you to do these podcasts. Appreciate you, even the live takes, everything that we've done together. Obviously, you'll be back on my show, and we'll do this again. So appreciate you for thinking of me and having me on.
Of course, you can subscribe to his show, Subway to Shea, wherever you get podcasts. This is the Sick Podcast. Mets Magic at SickPod Mets on Twitter, Sick Podcast, Mets Magic, YouTube. And subscribe wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen. We appreciate it. Go to Homage, check the site in the link below. Get your clothes, get your gear, and we'll see you at Citi Field this weekend. Sick Podcast, Mets Magic. Smash that thumbs up, comment below, and let's go Mets. We'll see you next week.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Mets Magic on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.